We'll just wait one more minute for Jason and then we can get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Distribution Maintainers meeting, December 8th. This is the first time we've pulled this meeting out of the distribution team meeting. And so the agenda today is kind of, at the moment, a mix of our previous meeting method and maybe a mix of our future one. We'll have to see. That's part of what we're here to discuss today. So later on in the agenda today, we kind of have the MR list from last week. The last time we did a maintainers meeting was last Monday. Uh, uh, so we still have that kind of weekly list here this week. That's probably not what that's going to quite look like in a month from now. So I'll jump right into the agenda to begin with. So the first item I have is just in regards to the invite that went out. For this first meeting, I invited all the distribution is optional. And my plan is that I think this is probably due to the holidays. This is probably our only December maintainers meeting, or at least our only planned one, unless something comes up and we feel we have to meet again. But kind of there's, now that we have this separate meeting, there's kind of this question about who to invite. So my plan is for our January meeting, the first one we have in January, potentially the only one we have in January, I'll do the same thing and I'll invite everyone. But in that meeting, I think will be a good topic to discuss will be the cadence of these meetings, whether we have them monthly or every other week or something like that. And then at that point, it'll be more people who want to attend who aren't in the maintainers or aren't maintainers are welcome to ping myself or someone and get themselves added to the attendee list so it's in their calendar. Is kind of my plan there. But yeah, I was thinking in the January meeting, we could probably, based on how we feel for the how long it was between this one and that one, whether we need to do it more often or we can keep it monthly or something like that. So that's my current thoughts there. I'm just going to jump into the next menu, the next agenda item, which is a discussion topic I wanted to bring up. This is related to the MR list that we have below that I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the call. So this list previously, or I shouldn't say previously, but most recently, what we've been doing is this list has all of the MRs we merged in the previous week. And then we don't talk about all of them anymore. We basically just talk about the important ones. But due to how we split this meeting out and due to some other changes going on at the time, I feel that even the bolded ones, like there was probably different reasons for why we bolded them previously. One of those reasons I think still pertains to us, what we want to raise up here and in the async channel, which is that they're an MR that we think the other maintainers should know about, that it went in, or that it set some precedence, or that we want to discuss. So that's one, and that's one that I think we should continue to discuss in these meetings or re-bring up in these meetings. The other, we used to just talk about like important MRs that maybe impact the team as a whole. But recently in the distribution team meeting, we now have this priority list that we're already talking about, like important MRs going in. And so I think that's, for now, at least a better place for that. The thing that so basically my proposal is that we being, especially if we're not going to be doing a weekly meeting like this, that I don't think we want to be maintaining in this agenda doc a list of every single MR we've merged potentially in the last month. So my proposal is to kind of keep it for this meeting going forward, that we're going to keep it focused more to these ones we want to bring up to the maintainers. And then just like separate from that, if the raw list is useful to people, and for myself, I like it, but not necessarily in the meeting. I like having the raw list just to see what other people are merging, just to have an idea what's going in. But if enough of us think that's the case, we should probably just be generating a weekly report, or have someone figure out a good GitLab org like merge request filter that shows what we want. Does anyone have any comments or anything they want to discuss with that idea? Have any thoughts?
I can just plug real quick the schedule monitoring job that I've been working on to get implemented could probably be fairly easily leveraged to then also generate a report of merged MRs. So that might be something you want to look into taking advantage of. I'll link to that in the doc.
Yeah, I'm still myself interested in kind of like a weekly list of merged MRs, but I'm not necessarily, which is another reason for me why it's I feel it should be separate from this meeting, is because I'm in the camp which thinks that I prefer not to have a weekly meeting for the distribution maintainers, but I still would like to see a weekly list. But yeah, that definitely could be an option.
Yeah, well, doing this via API is definitely possible, because I am doing something similar to generate my weekly stand-up things, like what I had authored, what I had reviewed, and what I had merged. So this is the stuff I copy paste into team meeting and maintenance meeting. So it is possible to do this via API. We can just run it every week. Well, someone will have to write the code, but yeah.
Yeah, that comment on someone will have to write the code, I think is an interesting thing to bring up in my mind, just in terms of some of the purposes of this meeting. So we now have this distribution Slack channel. So even the things that are bolded here, or basically almost everything in this meeting, my hope is that those are things that have also been mentioned in the Slack channel. But if we have a meeting once a month, it might have been a month ago that they were first dropped in, and who knows who was online. And that this meeting maybe both helps us spread that knowledge, but it also like keeps us accountable for action items. I think like things like this, where like someone has to code it. At least we like come in, like maybe we mentioned it in Slack at one point, right? But if we have a monthly or every other week meeting, then at least we have a cadence at which we can keep pushing on like those ongoing tasks, and say, okay, we said we were going to do this. We need to actually have someone work on it. So that sort of thing is kind of why I think like this synchronous meeting is still something we should do on occasion, is for things like that. And like on that same, so the next thing on the agenda is the maintainers discussion items. And so for anyone doing triage, I would also propose that triage issues that have the maintainer, I think we should still use the maintainer discussion label, because that helps us maintainers like self-select, not self-select, but kind of see them without having to be pinged about them. But I do think it would, that even people adding those labels as part of triage, it'd be good to just at the same time, rather than waiting for this meeting, which might be a while, or waiting for a maintainer to take a look at it on their own schedule, looking at those labels, I think it'd be also good to just, when you run into a maintainer discussion item, that you add the label, but you also drop it in our Slack channel as well. I know like with the weekly cadence of this meeting, I think maybe we've been often waiting for the weekly cadence to have them brought up.
Should there be a maintainer group so that they can mention the maintainers? So it's more of a push than a pull. So it's not necessarily up to the maintainers to subscribe to the label, I guess.
Yeah, that might be an idea. Might be a good idea. If we want to do, that might be the easiest for people wanting to get our attention. Let's create a new group for the maintainers, and then people can just at mention us in issues.
Just thinking out loud, I know there's a GitLab issue to add an at here for mentions, so that it'll mention everybody who's already watching the issue, but an at maintainer to mention all of the maintainers of the current project would probably also be useful.
Yeah, I like that approach. I've seen that. Oh, sorry.
I see. So you're actually suggesting, like, we could make our own group, but you're suggesting even further that it could be a GitLab feature that you would just.
Yeah, you could like mention, add developer to get all the developers, add owners to mention all the owners, that sort of thing. Might be useful.
Role.
I don't know. Just, yeah, spitballing at this point in time.
Stephen, you were going to say something?
I've seen that, not that model used that was described, but I have seen like where like there's several different manager groups literally in GitLab, so that like if they want all the managers to look at the retro issue or something like that, there's a way that mechanism is kind of already being leveraged by different teams for different similar purpose, where it's a broad group of people that you all want to look at a specific issue.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other comments or any other maybe main agenda items they want to talk about before we jump into what is effectively like our previous type of agenda style? So maintainers discussion issues next. Okay, so we can jump into the maintainers discussion items. These, because we had a meeting last week, this is going to be just from the previous week. I think we have two, only one is mentioned here, I guess, and then the other one Jason had called out in our call yesterday, our team meeting. I'm just linking, I'm gonna link the other one in here. But for the first one, there's a topic here about the GitLab runner dependency update. Let's see, is Jason on the call? No, he's not. So I encourage everyone to take a look. I'm going to take another look today, but basically we've had an ongoing issue. We have a couple issues, but right now we're relying on our dependencies.io integration to tell us that there's a new runner chart. And we've already had some issues in the past with that, just simply because of the scheduled time that it happens. Like we run that job twice a week, but the runner chart gets tagged maybe like a day or two before our release type thing, and so it doesn't always run. Like the cadence of it running isn't always at a point where it opens up that MR in time for us to merge it for the release. And then the other thing that has happened is something that we had encountered on the Omnibus project with dependencies.io as well, but was something that was causing MRs for the runner not to show up at all each month. Is simply we have occasions where dependencies.io makes the MR, but then also we have someone else create a duplicate MR. If we merge that duplicate MR and we only close the dependencies.io MR, basically as long as the branch exists for the dependencies.io change, it basically will stop updating that component. So We have to, like, when we're dealing with dependencies.io, unfortunately, rather than just close their MRs, we have, if we just want to pause that component for a while, closing the MR is fine. But if we want to get a new, like the next update of that component, so if we're closing it because something else is merged, we have to actually delete the branch that dependencies.io created, so it will keep doing it. But due to both those factors, both that issue with dependencies.io and the current amount of time, or the current cadence of us scheduling it, its run, we have this issue where multiple releases in a row, we've kind of had the runner come out in the next patch release, like our bundled runner for the chart, when it probably could have made the initial release, just if that hadn't happened. So those are kind of like the main problems with it. And then there's a further discussion that Jason and I have been having, and also the community has been having. So I'm in the camp where I don't mind that it's a release behind. The runner that we ship for like the cluster integration in GitLab itself, like the one you can install into your connected cluster, is always a release behind. So I'm also, I don't have a problem with us just saying that the bundled one is always one release behind as well. But that's just my opinion. I think that might have been the greater discussion Jason wanted to bring up here. But oh, Jason, you're online.
Yeah.
Now. Go
Sorry,
for
I
it.
had family things. Yeah, the short answer is customers keep going, yo, it's not up to date. Yo, it's not up to date. And the thing is, we have the ability to make sure that it actually is up to date. So we should do that.
Yeah, an action item, well, okay, there's a couple action items that we can do. We can make it as part of our like release process to explicitly go in and make sure that we've updated the runner right before release. The other thing we can do is we can basically, from I guess the 17th to the 21st, we could set the dependencies.io to run every day during that time as well, which would fix at least the cadence problem. The reason why we don't have it every day, like all the time in all the projects, is due to like we pay for a certain number of updates, and each time you hit it, like let's say if you haven't merged the previous ones and so you still have updates for the previous ones, it still counts those open ones as new updates for the like payment level plan that we're on. So we get like a certain number of updates per month, and it counts the ones, it keeps counting the ones we've left open each time it runs as adding to that type thing, which is kind of a bug in my opinion, but that's
DJ, so I do have a memory of runner team agreeing to cut the releases a bit earlier, so it will fall under the dependencies.io schedules. Like right now, the runner is released like 20th or something, like just before a new version is cut. Like after the stable branches are cut in GitLab, but before 22nd, we did talk with them. Like I can dig up the link, and they did agree to cut their releases a bit early if that helps us, so that dependencies.io could do its job. Do we still want to go down that route, like ensure runner is cut as early as possible?
So I think yes. The earlier it's cut, the more confident we're going to, like, we're gonna have more time to actually get it in. But even separate from that, even if we were able to get it in but it came in like the last like couple hours before the release, it would still be more ideal if it came in the day or day before the release. So we have some opportunity to catch an incompatibility. So I think that would still be good if we could get an extra day or two.
just pulling in the actual release issue for the runner from 13.6 that shows their dates and what their proposed work actually is. What we'll actually see along these lines is their supposed actual release dates and what things are supposed to go update. And unless I'm mistaken, they cut the release here on their schedule at 20th. And we did at least get them to cut it, you know, a couple of days early for this purpose. That's the 20th date that DJ was talking about. If we can manage to squeeze that in on a regular basis, then we shouldn't have a whole lot of a problem. The trick is they have to release the runner, and then they have to update their chart to consume it, and then they have to update our chart to consume their chart.
Yeah, so is the 20th, is that already the, Balu, do you think that's already the, like the thing we had talked about before with them, which was releasing a couple days early?
I had to check. I think it was suggested 17th or 18th. I had to confirm. I will find the link and confirm.
Yeah, so we should follow up with that. And then we should, I think probably we should also schedule the dependencies.io to run more frequently in the charts project, at least around the release freeze. And then I think this is a good issue to make sure that we're like, that we hold our, like we've had a couple ideas here, we should hold ourselves accountable. So we should probably make sure that we're talking about it again next month as well. Okay, on the next one, the long-term goals and plans for GitLab Docker container-based image. This is something that Jason called out in the meeting yesterday. I think we can continue to look at it async as well, but I'll give the opportunity here if anyone had already some thoughts on it. Feel free. Does anyone have anything they want to mention about it?
I'm just wondering, there was, in the lead up discussion so far, there's been a lot of seeming feeling that it's a heavy lift. It's putting Ubi 8 under our containers, which is essentially replacing, we can take our CentOS container and just basically direct lift it with not a whole lot of muss and fuss. So I'm wondering, you know, why we couldn't do that as a quick win that would help out, especially with, I won't mention the customer, with specific customer. I don't know that we want to start them off on a conversion to an unsupported platform they're going to custom build, right? Because it's not Ubi in the same way as the charts Ubi, where they're going to build themselves. We could build them an Ubi-based container. It's basically, they're following the Red Hat guidelines for container bases.
Right. We did discuss this somewhat yesterday in the leads call. The items I brought up were if we were to build more than one GitLab, GitLab-EE, GitLab-CE, that's in the official Docker registry or our normal omnibus Docker container, then we should limit the number that we do. I agree UBI makes sense, especially for the RHEL and CentOS users, follow that pattern. But we should not be doing every single possible distribution that we can. We should focus on either Ubuntu or Debian. Ubuntu makes sense because of the 4-year LTS cycles. Debian makes some sense too, as long as we make sure that we are actively upgrading on a more regular basis. When it comes to RHEL and CentOS, Fedora, the UBI-based container should be sufficient, and it would allow a customer that really wants to have the ability to actually build it themselves. But I don't think doing one for UBI and CentOS and Debian and SUSE and makes any sense. It's a waste of resources.
I'd love to get those comments in that issue. What would folks think about scheduling that long-term issue to at least get the discussion going? Schedule it in 13.8, and that gives us a nice long runway to kind of collect comments and context before we decide.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, I'll go ahead and make that happen.
Just to kind of clarify, because it sounds like there's a lot more read into the original post I wrote up than was actually meant. I was only suggesting for the three there, Ubi, CentOS, and Debian, because Debian is basically Ubuntu. And in the container, it doesn't really matter. We're packaging it. If you don't want to run Ubi because you don't have rel licensure, you don't want to deal with rel licensures, you run CentOS, and then Ubi for people who want Ubi. Literally only three. So that was my thought process, was cut it to those three only, not even Ubuntu.
Okay, so Ubuntu is basically Debian, not the other way around. But I'm still leery of doing more than we need to. Okay, don't get me wrong. I understand it from a product and consumer's perspective. But the sheer answer is let's not do more than actually is required. We don't want people doing huge distributions in instances of this Docker container, contrary to those folks that are out there doing, 100 node ASGs. We do not want that being done because that's not what this is currently designed to do. So
Yeah, and just some clarity there, Robert. Or so the UBI images are actually subscription manager free, and their repos are as well. So we probably don't need one in addition to CentOS, thanks to that being the case.
For now.
Fair
Fair
enough.
That one on there.
that's fair.
So-
But until proven otherwise, it's going to cost us time and money to maintain and distribute.
Yeah, for the moment, it looks like we would only probably need the UBI. We're running towards the end of the meeting, and I wanna make sure we have time to talk about some of the bolded items from the merged request. So let's switch this one to continue async in the issue, and let's jump into the final parts of the meeting here. So one item I wanted to call out from the Helm charts that was merged was the change from JSON around implementing a generator pattern for web service, which allows us to create a deployment of web service for API and for internal API and for Git HTTP separate from the rest and stuff like that, if you choose to. So it's based on ingress path is how we have it splitting out. I wanted to call it out because it does essentially put a little bit of a looping wrapper around all of our web service code. So all of the web service charts templates have now taken this change, and so they look a little bit different as of Friday last week. So be aware of that when you, if you have MRs working in that area, and just when you're working in that area. That was for me on charts that I wanted to call out. On the omnibus, one item I want to call out that we merged on Monday, yesterday. There was a discussion around versioning the omnibus builder. So we have an upcoming change that's very much, regardless of the decision on this, was very much a major release change of the builder. But before getting that in, we wanted to kind of solidify what the version scheme for the builder images was. So we went ahead and did that. There's a document that Balu added, which I have bolded, that adds what our version scheme, or defines our version scheme for that project. So feel free to take a look. Does anyone have any other merge requests they wanted to call out to make call out for awareness to the maintainers? If not, I think we're good. I'll schedule another one of these meetings for early January. Otherwise, you can find us in the distribution maintainers Slack channel, and keep in mind that's where we want everything that would show up in this meeting. We still want it there as soon as it's ready for us to take a look at. And our January meeting, we'll be re-going over those items to make sure that we've had a chance to act on them. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good day.